What is going on, everybody? It is week 5. Welcome back to the channel. I am Graham Barfield, one of the co-owners here at the greatest fantasy football site in the universe, FantasyPoints.com, and we are here to talk through week 5 starts and sits. Pretty tough week this week, obviously. I mean, we got Browns, Seahawks, Chargers, and the Bucks all out on a bye. Those are 4 teams we've obviously all been heavily relying on in our fantasy lineups. And this is just a really tricky slate in general here in week 5. We've got a lot of really tight spreads, a lot of really close projected ball games. It's going to be a really, really tricky week. It's looking like it's going to be a pretty low scoring week too. So let's get right into it. We'll start with running backs. And we'll start with 3 starts. Again, this is a kind of a trickier week to go through, so we're going to hit on a few more running back and receiver starts than typical. And we'll get it started here with Isaiah Pacheco. I think a lot of people have been kind of like worried if this is going to be like a full-on rotation with these Chiefs backfield. What kind of role is Jerick McKinnon going to have weekly? Are we concerned about Clyde Edwards-Helaire? 2 weeks ago, if you look just at the box score, he got 15 carries. However, when it's mattered, when the games have been close, when the Chiefs are trying to win, Pacheco has been on the field. He's been the clear lead back, 55% snap share when the game has been within a score. And then McKinnon and Clyde Edwards-Helaire are just like splitting kind of just different roles. McKinnon obviously plays on more third downs and passing downs. This is all to say Pacheco is the only guy that really matters for fantasy in this backfield. He's got the most important role. He's got the goal line role. This season, the Chiefs have run the ball 8 times inside the 10. Pacheco has gotten the ball 7 times on those carries. So if that continues, wheels up here, man, because Pacheco's getting just enough work in between the 20s. He's getting a few extra targets, and then obviously getting all the red zone work attached to a Patrick Mahomes-led offense. Look, this is kind of a trickier matchup with the Vikings. They have been pretty good against the run, except for one game against the Eagles. But just like last week, Pacheco was in a tougher matchup against the Jets and came through. I think he's one of the best RB2 plays on this slate here. Number 2 start of the week, Devon Achane. I still want to say Achane. It's so dope. But Devon Achane, man, he is, speaking of dope, just incredible player. His start-stop speed is like literally maybe only rivaled by Tyreek Hill in the NFL right now. It's just unbelievable what he's doing. Last week, everybody was thinking, oh, that 200-yard game, that just kind of came because, the Broncos were just getting killed. Like, no. In that game, week 3, Achane had 10 first-half carries to Mostert's 7. And this past week, we once again saw Achane's role. It was a pretty direct split between him and Raheem Mostert. But just like what we talked about with Pacheco, we got to be focused on money snaps in fantasy football, right? Like, we need access to upside. We need access to touchdowns. And through 2 games, Achane has been the guy in the red zone. 70% snap share compared to a 30% snap share for Mostert in the red zone, according to FantasyPoints data. To me, that's a huge signal for Achane's ceiling in this spot. I don't want to see any questions on the Sunday show with myself and John Hansen and Tom Brawley about Achane. You're starting him this week. All right, a lot trickier call here than Devon Achane is Breece Hall. Obviously, the role has not been what we needed to be for fantasy. And I think this was kind of somewhat expected. I was kind of laying off Breece in best ball because I thought he would get off to a slow start. In season long, though, I kind of liked his upside because you could, draft him in like the 4th or 5th round and then just, take a shotgun to the mid-round running backs and probably find a few good ones. I was on Ken Walker and James Conner to name a few. And then it's like, oh, by week 5, maybe Breece Hall will be ramped up. And here we go. It's week 5. They're playing the Denver Broncos. And this Broncos defense is just completely collapsed. Pass, run, does not matter. Zach Wilson's obviously a huge question mark this week. I guess if you want to say we could have a little more confidence, he did play his best career game ever against the Chiefs at home last week. So maybe there's a little bit of progression we can hang our hats onto. But really the call for me is Breece Hall's role is going to go bananas here, I think. I don't think we're going to see him unleashed in like a Christian McCaffrey. He's going to get 90% of the snaps type of role, but Breece getting 60% of the snaps against a Broncos defense that's just not trying anymore. Man, he's got an RB1 ceiling here in this spot. To me, Breece is like swing for the fences RB2. Like I said, it's a really, really tricky week. Once you get past like the top 7 or 8 ranked running backs, it's just like kind of like a big, long, flat tier of RB2s, and it just really kind of depends on how you feel about the certain type of player and also the points that you need. So Breece to me is like kind of a low floor play, but insane ceiling in this spot. Obviously, if he gets 15 touches in this game, like, man, he could have 120 yards pretty easily. All right, sticking in that same game, again, tricky week at running back. Javonte Williams is my sit of the week. I think he's going to play through this hip injury, but this might turn into a three-man committee really quick. Jaleel McLaughlin is worthy of a merit-based promotion. He has got some serious speed. In his coaching career, Sean Payton has always kind of liked having a running back stable and guys that play like specific roles. Samaje Perine's more of the passing down player, and he's a really good pass blocker, and he kind of just does all the little things right, but he's not explosive. Jaleel McLaughlin's the opposite of that. He's a rookie, and you can learn how to do all the little things right, but he is really explosive, and if you get him on the edge, he's got some juice. And then Javonte is kind of a little bit of everything. He can do a little bit of everything really well. To me, though, this is a pretty tough spot. Jets run defense has played really well. And again, we don't like two-man committee backfields. This was already a two-man committee. In weeks 1 through 3, before Javonte suffered the hip injury last week, Perine was getting more passing down work, and he was out-snapping Javonte Williams in the red zone 11-5 inside the 10. So to me, man, Javonte's fantasy stock is in a really, really shaky spot right now. All right, flipping over to receivers. Got to flip over to some receivers, and we'll talk through first this Rams wide receiver situation. Cooper Kupp looks like he's going to play this week, guys. Kupp is back. The hamstring injury was not as bad as the Rams originally thought, and he looks ready to go. I don't think we're going to see him play in like a full-on, 100% of the snaps this week. They'll probably scale him back a little bit, but listen, Matthew Stafford, we're all watching these games. He's playing more than well enough to support not just Puka Nacua, not just Cooper Kupp, but he's playing well enough to support maybe Tutu Atwell and a third Rams receiver here. This Rams offense is extremely pass heavy. It's kind of like why we were all buying into the Vikings passing offense. Not just Jefferson, obviously, but we liked T.J. Hawkinson. We were liking Jordan Addison. It's kind of the same corollary here with the Rams. The Rams right now are 5th in pass rate over expectation at nearly 6%. This offense has really struggled to run the ball for now 2 straight years, and now they're getting Cooper Kupp back. I mean, they could really even pass even more. There's some room for growth here, especially with Nacua and Kupp working together. So to me, Stafford has, in his career, done nothing but elevate receivers. If you look just throughout his career, it doesn't matter the talent from Calvin Johnson to Cooper Kupp on down to the bottom. He has supported great fantasy receivers his entire career. There is no reason to believe that Nacua and Kupp can't both coexist as top 15 plays. I'm not going to sit here and say that Cooper Kupp still has the same 26 point per game ceiling that he once had. That's probably not the case anymore, but Kupp still can absolutely be a wide receiver 1 alongside Nacua in this offense. And listen, this spot up against the Eagles, we can't have last year's brain anymore. We've got 4 games of data. We got a month's worth of data. We've got a month's worth of game film to watch. Eagles secondary, this defense, we kind of knew was going to regress. It wasn't like, their talent has dropped off. It's just really hard to sustain the rates that they were sustaining, the elite rates, the sack rates, the high turnover rate, the high EPA on turnover rate. All of that has been really hard to sustain, and their secondary has struggled. Through 4 games, they've given up the 5th most fantasy points to slot receivers. They've given up the 6th most fantasy points to outside receivers. So wherever Kupp and Nacua line up this week, I think they're going to have some success, especially in a game where the Rams project a trail and throw a ton again. One other start I like a lot this week is DeAndre Hopkins, somebody I haven't liked all season. We've faded Hopkins all year. If you've been reading Start Sit, you've been fading Hopkins. If you were reading any of our articles, you were fading Hopkins this year, but I actually really like him this week up against the Colts. Tannehill's been up and down this season, but he's been kind of easy to predict if you just look at the matchups from that kind of perspective. Tannehill obviously struggled in week 1 in a tough matchup against the Saints, but in 2 easier ones against the Bengals and Chargers, he's been okay. He's not been a fantasy option, but he's been serviceable enough to make Hopkins okay for fantasy, and this is a great spot. The Colts really struggle to get pressure. Right now, Ryan Tannehill is struggling under pressure massively. Colts are 30th in pressure rate, so good matchup for Tannehill up front. He shouldn't be pressured too much. And this is a great spot for DeAndre Hopkins. These Colts outside corners, we've been picking on them all year. We've been right all year. They're giving up the 4th most fantasy points to outside wide receivers. And Hopkins, I was a little concerned that he was going to struggle against man coverage. Again, small sample, 4 games, but according to Fantasy Points data, all of Hopkins' most important metrics against man coverage look pretty good. To me, Hopkins is a start this week. I think this is the best spot he's gotten all year. And we're going to have to be really concerned about his fantasy stock for the rest of the season if he can't get home in this spot. All right, finally, one sleeper to think about in your fantasy lineups this weekend, especially in PPR leagues. Maybe, actually, let me back up. definitely only in PPR leagues, is Wan'Dale Robinson. Darius Slayton remains the Giants' wide receiver 1 by route share. He's the only guy who can play full-time outside. But for whatever reason, this Giants offense is just not really getting him involved in the intermediate areas. We know they can't throw deep because their offensive line can't block long enough for Daniel Jones to throw deep. So this all leads me to Wan'Dale Robinson as the slot receiver, the guy who's going to get open quickly in the slot here. And his role continues to go up. Last week he got a promotion. Isaiah Hodgins and Paris Campbell took a step back by route share, and this is a pretty good spot. The Dolphins play a lot of cover 3 zone, and that kind of like leads the slot and the interior open a little bit more, and there's a signal here. The Dolphins have surrendered the 4th most receptions and the 4th most fantasy points to slot receivers in a game that the Giants are going to have to throw a lot. Again, putting trust in this Giants offense right now is impossible. Again, this is why, Wan'Dale is like only a deep league play and somebody that you could pick up off waivers right now. But I do like Wan'Dale's role to continue to grow, and to me, he's really the only Giants receiver in this offense that I think has a chance to have like a sustainable role in fantasy this year because, like I said, Slayton just isn't getting the deep shots because they can't keep Daniel Jones upright long enough. So if there's any role in this offense that's going to be a profitable one for fantasy, it'll be the full-time player through the slot. And Wan'Dale looks healthy, looks ready to go back off the knee injury. 6 targets last week. I think you can play him as like a wide receiver 4 flex play in like the deep 12 and 14 team leagues this week. Guys, thanks so much for hanging out. Thanks so much for listening. As always, you can hit me up in Discord, in our subscriber Discord at Graham Barfield. I will answer any start-sit question that you have. I literally probably answered, I bet 150 this year. I love talking to you guys, seriously. Hit me up in Discord. If you could please like this video, subscribe to our channel. It really does help. Really do appreciate you guys hanging out and watching for this long. And good luck in week 5. Let's get some wins. Good luck with the buys, everybody. I'll see you guys next week.